Today I'm going to teach you how to create your own data set using Excel. Hi everyone, my name is Precious Alo. If you are new here, welcome. And if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. My name is Precious Alo, and on this channel we talk about finance, we talk about tech tutorials, we talk about lifestyle, and everything in between. Today I'm going to teach you how to create your own data set using Excel. The first thing you have to do is, if you have the paid Microsoft package Office, then of course you're all covered. But if you don't, you can create the data on Microsoft 365 and then save it and then import it into your Excel to work with. So without wasting so much of your time, we're just going to get right into it. And I'll walk you through on how to create the data you need to work on your project. Version on your desktop. Okay, right, let's get right into it. Like I said, if you're using the Microsoft paid version, you just have the updated 2021 updates on your Excel, and you can do everything I am about to share with you. But if you don't, then you have to use Microsoft 365 online, right? So the first thing you have to do is to create a profile if you don't have one. But if you have one, simply log in. So I have a profile and I'll just log in. But in case you don't, you just write Microsoft 365 in your browser, you open it. It's still opening my account because I already have an account. But if you don't, just follow the instructions and create a profile the same way you create a profile for any other platform. So the next thing you may want to do is to click on Excel here, and you select a blank workbook like so. To rename this workbook sales data set, and I will also create the title of all my columns: cost of goods sold, and I'll just color it beautifully to make it easier. I also create a tax value here that we can use to tax the sales. So like I said, you just use the round between function. So for the date, you write round between and select it. And so because I want to create a random date, the first thing I'll write is to tell Excel that this is going to be a date. So I'll write the date function. And this function requires 3 inputs from me. The first one is the year. So we are just going to create a very small data set. But just know that you can modify your data set to be medium or even become a very large data set, right? So I'll just create a data set between 1 and 15. So the year I'll be using is 2024. So I want it to be 2024. And then the month should be January, which is 1. And the day should be, I don't want to say 1st of January because that's New Year. So let's say 3rd. And then I'll close this bracket and I'll put a comma. So this is the first random number or date, right? So I want to also generate the top. So the top should be a date as well. So I'll write a date. And I want this date to end at February. So I'll say 2. And I want it to end on the 29th. We have a leap year, so I want it to end on the 29th of February. And I'll close my parentheses and close my round between function. So in order to quickly explain this round between function, you have to select a bottom and a top. And between these two dates that you have specified, Excel is going to randomly select a date depending on the number of rows that you draw your column downwards to. So once I close this and press enter, you can already see that Excel has already given me a date. But if yours shows as a number, just know that Excel interprets dates as a number. Okay. The default setting for columns or for Excel cells is to be on general, right? So now that I've changed mine to general, you can see that my date is showing as a number. This is because Excel assumes that date started on 1900. So 1900 is 1, right? And from 1900 to this very date here is 45,298. So all you simply have to do is just go to this place and change your date, change the setting from general to short date, or if you want long date, that's fine. And after you do that, you just simply drag down your cell. I want mine to stop at 50, so there you go. I have my random date generated. The next thing I want to do is to give a serial number to my data. So I want to write 1, 2, 3. And afterwards, I'm going to go here and select the 3 numbers I've written. Excel will understand the series you're trying to create. And once you drag down your stop at 50, so once you drag down, you have your numbers filled in for you automatically. The next number I want to create is ID, right? So I want to assume that this company sells luxury goods. So the beginning of this ID is going to be LG, and I want it to be numbers ranging between 4 digits. So I'll write 0001, and I'll do the same LG. The reason I specify up to 3 series before dragging down is because I want Excel to understand what my series is about. So once I do this, like up to, you can already see that. Okay, just to be sure that the recording is going on. So you can already see that Excel is suggesting, it's trying to suggest what it thinks that I am working on, right? So I've specified up to 3. I specified up to 3 cells, and now I want to drag down. So I'll just select it and then I'll drag it down to 50 like we have been doing all this while, and there you go. You can see it has created, and it doesn't matter how many cells you drag this down up to. If I go as far as 1,000 or to the end of these Excel cells, my numbers is going to fill in accurately for me. So that's the beautiful part of the whole thing. So the next thing I want to create is the sales data. So I'll still use the random function. So I will run between. So I want to assume that this company goods, the price per unit of their goods ranges between 50,000 to, okay, let's say 800 to 1,000 euros. So I'll say 800 to 1,000 euros. And once I enter, I get a random figure. And if I drag down to 50, it will fill in like so. And also, if you want to work with figures, large numbers, that's entirely fine. You can just say that you want numbers between 50,000 to 100,000, 50,000 to 100,000. And once you enter, Excel understands what you're talking about. And once you go down, it will fill in like so. The next thing I do, yeah, when I'm trying to extract, because after sales, of course, you're going to be looking at cost of goods sold, right? So I want this cost of goods sold to be random as well, but I want to do it with respect to the sales I currently have. So I want to assume that this company that I'm currently working with has a cost of goods sold of between 15 to 20%. So I'm going to generate a random number. So I'm going to use this placeholder one here to generate a random number between 15 and 20. Close. This is just 19, right? But I need it to be in percentage because I am planning to use it as a percentage of the sales. So I simply divide it by 100. And you can see that we have 19%. So I will drag this down like so. And as you can see, I have random numbers between 15% and 20% that I'm going to use for my cost of goods sold. So what I simply have to do now is to multiply the sales by the placeholder that I have just created. And there you go, I have the cost of goods sold. And once I drag it down, like I've been doing, we have cost of goods sold that we can work with to create our data analysis. The next thing you like to do is to create the admin cost, because after cost of goods sold, you take admin costs, advertising costs from the company. So we have to create another placeholder. And for admin costs, I want to assume that the company spends between 7% and 10%. So equal to rank between 7 and 10% of their sales on admin costs. So yeah, there you go. And because, like I said before, I want it to be the percentage of the sales, I'm going to divide by 100. And once I drag this down, I have my placeholder field. And then to obtain the admin cost, I'll just multiply the sales by the placeholder I've just created, and I have my admin cost like so. So just drag this down, and we have our admin cost. Perfect. Another thing you may have observed is that the rand between function, the random module on Excel, refreshes every time you click on a particular key. For example, if I enter 10 here, just observe closely. Once I say enter, you notice that the figures existing before automatically changes, and I don't want it to be so. I want these figures to be permanent. I want to work with it. I want to move it to my Excel. I want it for my analysis. I do not want it to refresh automatically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check on every column that I use the round between function. The first one was the date. So I'm going to check, okay, yes, I have the round between function here. So I'm going to select the whole column, and I'm going to say Ctrl C. I'll copy it, and then I'll press right click on my mouse, and I want to paste it, paste special, right? I want to paste the values only, so I no longer want it to refresh every now and then. I want to paste only values, so I'll click on values only. And once you go back here, you will no longer see the round between function. You will only see the dates that I have generated. This is very important, because if you don't do this, once you import it into Excel, you lose your data, because if you don't have the paid version of Excel, this formula is not available on Excel, so it's only available online. So you have to make sure that you carry out this very particular step, pasting it as just values. That way it will no longer refresh. So here, there's no formula here. This is just random number. This is just numbers that I had entered, and Excel completed the series for me. But if you come to this other ID, we still have numbers that Excel completed series, so there's no formula involved. The next place that I have the round between function is on the sales data. So you will like to copy it the same way we copied the dates, then right click and paste it as just values. and escape. And if you go to the cell, you notice that you have just values. It will no longer refresh. The round between function is all gone. The next thing you want to do is to hide this column, right? You can hide it, but if you feel like you don't need it and you want to delete it, make sure that you copy this very, okay, for example, okay, I'll show you both ways. If you want to hide it, you right click and click on hide columns, and it will automatically hide away, right? But for me, I don't want to hide it, I want to delete it out. So I'll use this opportunity to show you how to delete it out on hide column, and I'll drag it out, and I have the placeholder here again. So you have to make sure that before you delete this column, because if you press on F2, you can see that this cost of goods sold is a product of this placeholder. If you delete this placeholder before carrying out the next step I'm about to explain, all the values you have here will be lost. So you have to be careful about that, not to delete the placeholder until you have copied the values on cost of goods sold and pasted it as just values. So that's the first thing you want to do. You copy, Ctrl C, and then you right click and paste again as just values, right? Once you do that, you press on the escape and you are out of that cell. So now that I've pasted this as just values, I want to delete this placeholder because it has done its work for us. So delete this column, it is out. And you see, we have our values. So you want to do the same thing for this admin cost. You want to copy, Ctrl C, the same thing, no difference. Paste as values again, escape, then delete this placeholder. Delete column. Beautiful. So we can actually create a column here. You can insert a column here and call it total cost. Total cost. And total cost is going to be a function of cost of goods sold plus admin cost, right? And if I drag it down like so, I have my total cost. And to get my profits, of course, it's going to be sales less total cost. And if I drag it down like so, I have my total cost. I have my profits, right? And this is just something I've typed out here. So tax is 15% of the profit that this company makes. So I would just simply do profits multiplied by this. And like when you are making a reference to a cell and you want it to be absolute, you do not want you don't want it to drag down, right? You have to use absolute referencing. So that's what I'm going to do. And the dollar sign on both the letter, which represents the column, and the number that represents the rows, is absolute referencing. So once you do that, press F4 once, twice, and we have our absolute referencing. So you click enter, and then we have the tax or the sales and the profit. Once you drag down like so, you notice you don't have any error or any issue. So you have your data set. Simple. So what you like to do is to save these data sets. So to download this, I'll just click on here, more options. And then I'll select download a copy. Once I click on this, I have it downloaded, and sample, that's done. So depending on where you want to work on, maybe you want to create a data analysis dashboard on Power BI or Excel, then you just simply go to the platform and then just import this data. For me, I simply want to show this on Excel, so I'll open this on my Excel. Fine, it's okay. Enable editing, and I want to create a pivot table. And I want to insert it on the existing worksheet. So drag this over here. I want to insert it here, and I'll just say okay. So first I'll put down my dates. First I'll put my sales in values. I'll put the order ID. With this now we can see all the sales we made in January, February, and to the end of the month. Like, this is just perfect when you want to create the data set you need for your own analysis. All right. So we've come to the end, and I hope that you have been able to create your own data set. If you had any challenge or any issues creating your data, you can just leave a comment in the comment section and I'll attend to it. If you have been able to successfully create your data sets that you need for whatever project, then congratulations to you. Thumbs up. I'm super proud of you. With that said, we've come to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. If you are new here, please subscribe to my channel. It really does help my channel grow. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.